I never thought the person who would destroy my life would be my own sister. But there I was, standing outside my dream apartment at 2 in the morning, watching strangers tear apart everything I had worked a decade to build, while Scarlett stood in my living room declaring it was hers now. That moment changed everything. My name is Chloe, and I'm 35 years old. For the past 8 years, I've owned a boutique interior design firm specializing in minimalist, contemporary spaces. Every piece in my portfolio represents countless hours of work, sleepless nights, and an unwavering commitment to perfection. I built my business from nothing, starting in a cramped studio apartment where I sketched designs on a folding table, surviving on instant ramen and black coffee. Success didn't come easy, but it came. 3 years ago, I finally achieved what I'd been working toward since college. I purchased a 3-bedroom apartment in one of the city's most desirable neighborhoods, a sun-drenched corner unit on the 15th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. I designed every square inch myself, from the custom floating shelves in the living room to the rainfall shower in the master bathroom. It was my sanctuary, my achievement, my proof that hard work pays off. I've always been independent, sometimes to a fault. My parents used to joke that I came out of the womb with a 5-year plan. I like order, I like control, and I like knowing that what I've built is mine. But I also have a weakness, one that nearly destroyed me. I've always had a soft spot for family, particularly for my older sister Scarlett. Scarlett is 3 years older than me, and we couldn't be more different. Where I'm organized and driven, she's chaotic and impulsive. Where I plan for the future, she lives entirely in the moment, never considering consequences. Growing up, our parents always made excuses for her. When she dropped out of college after 1 semester, they said she was finding herself. When she married Mark, a man with no ambition and even less backbone, at 22, they said it was true love. When she had 2 kids by 25 without any financial stability, they said children were a blessing. I watched from the sidelines, building my career, keeping my mouth shut, and occasionally bailing her out when things got rough. Mark, her husband, is exactly the kind of man you'd expect Scarlett to marry. He's passive, easily manipulated, and allergic to responsibility. He's held a dozen different jobs over the years, never lasting more than a few months at any of them. He has a talent for finding reasons why every employer is unreasonable, every workplace is toxic, every opportunity isn't quite right. Scarlett, meanwhile, works occasional part-time gigs in retail, but nothing consistent. Between them, they barely scrape together enough to pay rent on a rundown 2-bedroom apartment in a questionable neighborhood. Their kids, Lily and Jake, are 8 and 6. They're not bad kids, just completely undisciplined. Scarlett's parenting philosophy seems to be letting them do whatever they want while occasionally yelling at them when they annoy her. Mark's philosophy is hiding behind a newspaper or his phone and pretending he doesn't hear them. The result is 2 children who scream instead of talk, destroy instead of play, and have never heard the word no and actually believed it. The call came on a Tuesday evening in late September. I was working late at the office, reviewing designs for a luxury hotel renovation, when my phone rang. Scarlett's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer. Our conversations lately had been exhausting, always some drama or another, always her needing something, but guilt, that treacherous emotion, made me pick up. "Chloe, thank God you answered." Her voice was thick with tears, that particular theatrical quality she'd perfected over the years. I didn't know who else to call. I pinched the bridge of my nose, already feeling a headache forming. "What's wrong, Scarlett?" "We're being evicted." She let out a sob that sounded almost practiced. "The landlord is kicking us out. He says we haven't maintained the property, but that's a lie, Chloe. He just wants to raise the rent, and we can't afford it. We have nowhere to go. My babies are going to be out on the street." I knew this was coming. She'd mentioned being behind on rent a few months ago, and I'd given her money to catch up. Apparently, that money had gone elsewhere. "What about Mom and Dad? Can't you stay with them?" "Their place is too small. You know that. And they're getting older, they can't handle the kids full time." She paused, and I could hear the manipulation winding up like a spring. "You have that big, beautiful apartment. 3 bedrooms, all that space just for you. We wouldn't be any trouble, I promise. Just until we get back on our feet. A month, maybe 2. Please, Chloe, you're my sister. Blood is thicker than water, right?" Every instinct I had screamed at me to say no. I'd worked too hard for my space, my peace, my carefully constructed life. But there was Lily and Jake to consider, 8 and 6 years old. And there was the voice in my head, the one that sounded like my mother, telling me that family takes care of family, that I was blessed and should share those blessings, that saying no would make me selfish. "1 month, I finally said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "And you need to bring only essential items. My apartment isn't a storage unit. And we need to set some ground rules about respect for the space and the noise levels. I work from home sometimes." "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you." Scarlett's tears transformed instantly into excitement. "You're saving our lives, Chloe. I knew I could count on you. We'll be model house guests, I swear. You won't even know we're there. That should have been my first warning. Scarlett's promises were always as substantial as smoke. They arrived 3 days later. I'd spent those 3 days trying to prepare myself mentally and physically. I cleared out the guest room and the smaller third bedroom I used as an office, moving my work setup into my bedroom. I stocked the fridge with kid-friendly food. I even bought Lily and Jake a few toys and books, hoping to keep them entertained and quiet. I made a list of house rules, carefully worded to be firm but not controlling. No shoes in the apartment. Clean up after meals. Keep noise to a minimum after 8 p.m. Basic stuff. When the doorbell rang that Saturday morning, I opened it with a smile that I hoped looked genuine. That smile died the moment I saw what was happening. 2 large moving trucks were parked outside, and a team of movers was already hauling furniture and boxes, not a few suitcases. Not the essential items I'd specified. Entire rooms worth of stuff. Surprise! Scarlett breezed past me, Mark shuffling behind her with his eyes downcast. Lily and Jake bolted into the apartment, immediately starting to run and scream. I know you said essential items only, but I figured, why pay for storage when you have all this space? I stood frozen, watching as my minimalist, carefully designed sanctuary was invaded. Boxes were stacked in every corner. A sagging, stained couch was deposited in my living room, clashing horribly with my cream-colored sectional. Garbage bags full of clothes were dumped in the hallway. Within an hour, my apartment looked like a hoarder's storage unit. Scarlett, this isn't what we agreed on, I said, my voice tight with barely controlled anger. You said essential items. She waved her hand dismissively. Don't be so uptight, Chloe. It's just stuff. We'll sort through it eventually. Besides, we need to feel at home, you know? Can't live out of a suitcase for a month. Before I could respond, she'd marched into my master bedroom. I followed, a sense of dread building in my chest. This room is huge, she announced, opening my closet and running her hand along my carefully organized clothes. Way too much space for one person. Mark and I need this room. The kids need space to spread out, and this is the only bedroom that can fit our king-size bed. Absolutely not, I said firmly. That's my room. You can have the guest room. It has a queen bed, which is plenty. Scarlett turned to me, her expression hardening. Don't be selfish, Chloe. We have kids. They need a bigger space. You're just one person. You can sleep in that tiny office room. It's not a big deal. It's a very big deal. This is my home, Scarlett. Your guests here. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to that particular tone she used when she wanted to make you feel guilty. I thought family helped each other. I thought you were better than this. We're in crisis here, and you're worried about which bedroom you sleep in? What would Mom and Dad think? Mark finally spoke up, though he didn't look at me. Maybe we should just take the guest room, Scarlett. Shut up, Mark. She didn't even glance at him. Chloe, we need this room. We're taking this room. You're going to have to be a little less selfish for once in your life. I felt something crack inside me, but I was too shocked to fight. I told myself it was just a month. I could sleep in my office for a month. It would be fine. So I moved my clothes to the small closet in the office, gathered my toiletries from the master bathroom, and tried to ignore the sick feeling in my stomach as I heard Scarlett directing Mark to move their furniture into my room. That first night set the tone for everything that followed. The kids stayed up until midnight, running through the apartment, screaming and laughing. When I asked Scarlett to quiet them down, she told me kids would be kids and I needed to relax. They finally fell asleep around 1 a.m., sprawled across my formerly pristine cream sofa, sticky hands leaving stains on the fabric. Scarlett and Mark stayed up even later, watching TV at full volume in what used to be my bedroom. I lay in the small office, on an air mattress I'd had to inflate because there was no bed in there, listening to my home being destroyed, and wondered what I'd done. The next morning, I woke to chaos. The kitchen looked like a bomb had hit it. Every dish I owned was dirty and stacked in the sink or scattered across the counters. Cereal was spilled on my marble countertops. Milk had been left out and was now spoiled. The trash can was overflowing. Lily and Jake were watching cartoons on my TV with the volume maxed, eating candy for breakfast. I found Scarlett in my bedroom, still in bed, scrolling through her phone. Morning, she said without looking up. Can you watch the kids today? Mark and I need to go apartment hunting. I have to work, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I have a client presentation this afternoon. Just for a few hours. They'll be fine. They're no trouble. She finally looked at me, her expression annoyed. Come on, Chloe. We're trying to get out of your hair. The least you can do is help out a little. I wanted to scream that letting them stay here was already helping out, that I'd already sacrificed my space and my peace. But I swallowed it down. Fine, but just today. And you need to clean the kitchen before you leave. It's a disaster. She laughed. You're such a neat freak. I'll get to it later. We need to leave now or we'll miss our appointment. They didn't clean the kitchen. They left, and I spent my morning cleaning up after them while trying to work. Lily and Jake interrupted me every 5 minutes, demanding snacks, demanding entertainment, demanding attention. When I tried to conduct my client presentation via video call, Jake ran into the frame screaming about a toy he'd lost. Lily followed, yelling at him to shut up. In the chaos, Jake knocked over my coffee, which spilled across my laptop keyboard. The laptop died instantly. $2,000 of technology, ruined. My presentation was derailed. My client, clearly annoyed, said she'd call back later. She never did. I lost a $70,000 contract. That evening, when I tried to explain to Scarlett what had happened, she barely looked up from her phone. Accidents happen. You have insurance, right? And you'll get more clients. You always do, no big deal. It is a big deal, I said, my voice rising. That was a major contract, and I asked you to watch your kids. You said just a few hours. We got delayed. Apartment hunting takes time. You should be happy we're looking for a place. Or would you rather we stay here forever? She smirked at that last part, and something in her expression made my blood run cold. The days blurred into a nightmare. My apartment, once my sanctuary, became unrecognizable. The carpets were stained with juice and food. My custom throw pillows were torn, victims of the kids using them as projectiles. One of my carefully curated houseplants, a fiddle-leaf fig I'd nurtured for 3 years, was knocked over and destroyed, dirt ground into the white carpet. When I confronted Scarlett, she laughed and said, "It's just a plant, Chloe. Get another one." The noise was relentless. Lily and Jake seemed to have 2 volumes, screaming and louder screaming. They ran through the apartment like wild animals. My neighbors started leaving pointed notes on my door about the noise. I apologized profusely, but Scarlett told me to ignore them. They're just uptight jerks. Kids make noise, they'll deal with it. The financial burden was crushing. My utility bills tripled. The heating was constantly cranked up, the lights left on in every room, the TV running all day. Water usage skyrocketed from multiple long showers and the kids leaving faucets running. Scarlett raided my fridge daily, eating expensive groceries I'd bought for myself, and replacing them with nothing. When I suggested we split the grocery bills, she looked at me like I'd suggested she murder someone. Are you seriously trying to charge your sister for food, while we're in crisis? Wow, Chloe. I knew you were uptight, but I didn't know you were this cold. We're family shares. Mark, as always, said nothing. He'd found a spot on my couch and rarely moved from it except to eat or sleep. He didn't work. He didn't help around the house. He just existed, taking up space and resources. The breaking point with the bills came 2 weeks in. I'd just received my utility statement. The electric bill alone was $400, up from my usual $100. Water was nearly $200. Internet, which they used constantly to stream shows and play games, was being throttled because they'd exceeded my data cap. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by bills, and felt tears of frustration burning in my eyes. I printed everything out and waited for Scarlett to emerge from my bedroom. When she finally did, around noon, I handed her the papers. We need to talk about expenses. These bills have tripled since you moved in. I need you to contribute at least half. She glanced at the bills, then tossed them back at me. You can't be serious. You're going to nickel and dime your own sister? You live in this fancy apartment, you have your own business, and you're worried about a few $100s? That's pathetic, Chloe. A few $100s? Scarlett, this is nearly $1,000 more than usual. I can't afford to subsidize 4 people. Then maybe you shouldn't have offered to let us stay. She shot back. What kind of sister invites family over and then hands them a bill? This is so typical of you. Always about money, never about what really matters. What really matters is that you respect my home and my financial situation. You said a month. It's been 2 weeks and you haven't even looked at apartments. She rolled her eyes. We have looked. Everything is too expensive or too far from the kids' school or not in a safe neighborhood. We can't just settle for anything. Unlike you, we have children to think about. Then figure it out faster, because I can't keep doing this. Fine, she spat. If you're so desperate to get rid of us, we'll be out of here. Come on, kids, Mark. Chloe doesn't want us here anymore. Let's go. She made a dramatic show of gathering a few things, herding the crying children toward the door while shooting me accusatory looks. Mark followed, silent and hunched. I felt the guilt rising, the familiar childhood training that said I was being unreasonable, that I should be more patient, that family comes first. Wait, I said, hating myself for saying it. You don't have to leave today. Just please, start contributing to the bills, and we need to set a firm deadline. End of the month. That was the original agreement. She paused in the doorway, then slowly turned back, a small smile playing at her lips. Fine, end of the month, but you need to stop being so uptight about everything. And we're not paying those ridiculous bills. You'd be paying them whether we were here or not. That wasn't true, but I didn't have the energy to argue anymore. They stayed. The chaos continued, and I started to realize that Scarlett had no intention of leaving. My parents didn't help. When I called them to vent about the situation, hoping for support, my mother immediately took Scarlett's side. She's family, Chloe. She's going through a hard time. You have so much, and she has so little. Would it kill you to share for a few weeks? Mom, it's been 3 weeks. My apartment is destroyed. My bills have tripled. I lost a major client because I was babysitting her kids when I should have been working. This isn't sustainable. You're being dramatic. Scarlett told me you've been very unwelcoming, counting every penny, complaining about normal kid noises. I didn't raise you to be so selfish. The words hit like a slap. I'm not being selfish. I'm being reasonable. Well, it doesn't sound reasonable to me. Your sister needs you. I can't believe you'd even consider kicking her out. What would the neighbors think? What would people say about our family if Scarlett and those babies ended up homeless? I hung up feeling worse than before. Maybe I was being unreasonable. Maybe I was too focused on material things. Maybe I should just endure a little longer. Then came the barbecue. I'd gone to the office for a full day of work, desperate to escape the chaos at home and catch up on designs I'd fallen behind on. When I returned that evening, I found my apartment building's parking lot full of cars I didn't recognize. Music blared from somewhere nearby, loud enough to hear from the street. As I walked toward the building, I realized with growing horror that the music was coming from my apartment's balcony. I took the elevator up, my stomach churning. When I stepped into the hallway, my door was propped open. I could hear dozens of voices, laughter, the clink of bottles. I walked in to find my home transformed into a party venue. At least 30 people filled my living room and spilled out onto the balcony. My furniture had been shoved against the walls. Beer bottles covered every surface. Someone had spilled red wine on my white carpet. Cigarette smoke hung in the air despite my strict no-smoking policy. On the balcony, my parents were manning a large grill I didn't own, cooking burgers and hot dogs. Relatives I barely recognized were eating off my dishes, drinking from my glasses. Scarlett held court in the center of the living room, laughing loudly, a bottle of wine in her hand. I stood in my own doorway, invisible, as my space was violated by people who had no right to be there. Finally, my father noticed me. "Chloe, come join us. Your mother and I decided to throw a little family gathering. Isn't this great?" "You decided to throw a party? In my apartment? Without asking me?" My voice came out quieter than I intended, but the music was too loud for most people to hear anyway. My mother walked over, smiling. "Oh, don't be like that. We thought it would be nice to bring everyone together. You work too much, you never socialize. This is good for you. You had no right to do this without asking." I was shaking now with anger and hurt and disbelief. This is my home, my private space. You can't just take it over. Private space? Scarlett appeared beside my mother, swaying slightly. She was clearly drunk. "This is family, Chloe. Family doesn't need permission." "God, you're so uptight. No wonder you're 35 and single." The barb stung, but I focused on the larger issue. Everyone needs to leave. Now. "What? You're going to kick your own parents out? Kick your family out?" My mother's voice rose, drawing attention. People started to quiet down, turning to watch the drama unfold. "After everything we've done for you? After we raised you, paid for your education, you can't spare one evening to spend with family?" "This isn't one evening. This is every day for 3 weeks. This is my home being destroyed, my privacy being violated, my life being turned upside down. And none of you care. None of you have even asked how I'm doing or if this is okay with me." "Because you're fine." Scarlett stepped closer, aggressive now. "You're rich. You have this fancy apartment. You have your business. You have everything. And you can't even share a little bit without whining about it. You're so selfish, Chloe. You always have been. I've been letting you stay here rent-free for 3 weeks. I've been covering all your expenses. I've been patient with your kids destroying my home. How is that selfish? You say you're patient, but you complain constantly. Poor Chloe, the kids are too loud. Poor Chloe, the bills are too high. Poor Chloe, she has to share her precious apartment." Scarlett's voice dripped with contempt. "You know what? This apartment is wasted on you. You live here all alone, no husband, no kids, nothing. At least we're a real family." I felt something break inside me then, clean and final. I looked around at my parents, who were nodding along with Scarlett's words. At Mark, who stood in the corner, silent and useless as always. At my relatives, who were watching with interest but no intention of defending me. At my destroyed apartment, my violated space, my demolished peace. "I want you out," I said quietly. "All of you. This party is over. And Scarlett, you have 2 weeks to find a new place. I'm done." My mother gasped. "You can't do that. She has nowhere to go. She's had 3 weeks to find somewhere. She's chosen not to. That's not my problem anymore." Scarlett laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "I'm not going anywhere. You can't kick us out. We have rights. Tenant rights. You let us stay here. We're established now." Try to force us out and I'll sue you. Sue me then, I said. But this party needs to end. Everyone who doesn't live here, leave. Now. I stood firm, and slowly, reluctantly, people began to filter out. My parents left with cold, disappointed looks. Relatives muttered about what an ungrateful daughter I was. Finally, the apartment emptied, leaving just me, Scarlett, Mark, and the kids. Scarlett faced me, her expression ugly. 2 weeks? Fine. But you're calculating everything wrong. We don't owe you anything. You offered to let us stay. That was your choice. And if you think you're getting any money out of us, you're delusional. She swept past me into my bedroom and slammed the door. I looked around at the destruction. My carpet was ruined. My furniture was damaged. My dishes were broken. The smell of smoke and alcohol permeated everything. I sank onto my stained couch and put my head in my hands. The next morning, I left for a 3-day business trip, a major project I'd been working on for months. Before I left, I secured my bedroom door with a new lock, taking my most valuable items with me. I didn't trust Scarlett not to pawn them. As I drove to the airport, I felt a mix of relief at escaping and dread about what I'd return to. The business trip went well. The project was a success. For 3 days, I got to remember who I was before Scarlett invaded my life. I slept in a quiet hotel room. I worked without interruption. I ate meals at normal times. I felt human again. But the whole time, a knot of anxiety sat in my stomach. I texted Scarlett once to remind her about the 2-week deadline. She didn't respond. I told myself it would be fine. She'd be looking at apartments, making plans. Maybe being firm had finally gotten through to her. I should have known better. I arrived home around 10 p.m. on a Friday night. As I approached my building, I heard the music. It was so loud it echoed down the street. Bass thumped through the air, rattling windows. My stomach dropped. I practically ran to the elevator, my heart pounding. When I reached my floor, my front door was wide open. Music blared out into the hallway. I stepped inside and stopped dead. My apartment was packed with people. Dozens of strangers, dancing, drinking, smoking. The air was thick with cigarette and marijuana smoke. Empty bottles littered every surface. Someone had spray-painted graffiti on my carefully painted accent wall. My TV was showing a raunchy music video at full volume. The balcony door was open, and more people crowded out there, throwing bottles down to the street below. I pushed through the crowd, looking for Scarlett. I found her in the kitchen, sitting on my counter, a bottle of vodka in her hand, surrounded by people I'd never seen before. She was laughing hysterically at something a greasy-looking man with face tattoos was saying. "Scarlett!" I shouted over the music. "What the hell is this?" She turned to me, her eyes unfocused and bloodshot. For a moment, she didn't seem to recognize me. Then she laughed. "Oh, it's Chloe! Everybody, this is Chloe, the bitch who owns this place. Or thinks she does." People laughed. The man with face tattoos looked me up and down. "This is your place? Nice. Scarlett said we could crash here after the club closed." "No, you can't. Nobody can. This is my private residence. Everyone needs to leave right now." Scarlett slid off the counter, stumbling slightly. She walked toward me, and I could smell the alcohol on her breath from 3 feet away. "Your private residence?" She laughed again. "That's funny, because we live here now. This is our place. You're staying here temporarily, for less than 2 weeks more. This is still my apartment." "Is it?" She stepped closer, swaying. "Because I've been thinking, this place is pretty big, too big for one selfish bitch. I think it's actually perfect for me and my family. So you know what? We're staying, permanently. This is our home now." The room had gone quieter, people watching the confrontation with interest. "You can't do that," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is my apartment. I own it." "Do you?" "Because I've been living here for weeks. I've got mail coming here. I've changed my address with the DMV. I've got rights now, Chloe. Tenant rights." "You can't just kick me out." She smiled, ugly and triumphant. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. Go stay with Mom and Dad. Or get a hotel. I don't care. But this apartment, it's mine now." "You're insane. This is my property. You can't steal my home." "I'm not stealing anything. You invited me here, remember? You offered. And now I'm staying. If you don't like it, too bad." She turned to the crowd. "Right, guys? This is my place now." People cheered, laughing, raising their drinks. The man with face tattoos stepped forward. "You heard her. This is Scarlett's place, so unless you want trouble, you should probably go." I looked around at the crowd of strangers in my home, at my destroyed apartment, at Scarlett's mocking face. I could call the police, but with this many people, it would take hours to sort out. And Scarlett was right about one thing. She'd been here long enough that she probably did have some legal standing. Getting her out wouldn't be as simple as changing the locks. I felt tears of rage and helplessness burning behind my eyes, but I refused to cry in front of these people. Instead, I turned and walked out of my own apartment, the sound of laughter and music following me down the hallway. I got in my car and drove to a hotel, my hands shaking so hard I could barely grip the steering wheel. In that sterile hotel room, sitting on the edge of a generic bed, I finally let myself cry. I cried for my destroyed home, for my violated space, for the betrayal of my own family. I cried because I'd been too soft, too willing to sacrifice, too desperate to be the good daughter and sister. I cried because I was done being that person. Then I stopped crying, dried my eyes, and started planning. If Scarlett wanted to play dirty, she was about to learn that I could play dirtier. She'd underestimated me, assumed that because I'd been patient and kind, that I was weak. She was about to find out exactly how wrong she was. I called Marcus first. He was my boyfriend of 2 years, though we'd kept things casual. He owned a successful construction company and had connections throughout the city's real estate and legal world. More importantly, he was practical, strategic, and had no patience for people who took advantage of others. It was past midnight, but he answered on the second ring. "Chloe, everything okay?" I told him everything, the words spilling out in a rush. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then Marcus spoke, his voice cold with anger. "Pack a bag. Come stay at my place. And don't worry about Scarlett. We're going to handle this." Next, I called Lisa, my best friend from college. She was a corporate lawyer at one of the city's top firms, specializing in property law. She answered on the third ring, her voice groggy. "Chloe, it's 1 a.m. What's wrong?" I repeated the story. By the time I finished, Lisa was wide awake. "Okay, first, you did the right thing by leaving. Don't engage with them physically, or you could get in trouble. Second, get me everything you have documentation of rental agreements, bills, communications, anything. Third, meet me at my office first thing Monday morning. We're going to bury your sister in paperwork." The three of us met that Monday morning at an upscale cafe downtown. Marcus brought a contractor friend who specialized in security systems. Lisa had a leather folder full of documents. I brought my laptop with every piece of evidence I could gather, photos of my destroyed apartment, copies of all the utility bills showing the spike in usage, text messages from Scarlett, even video I'd taken on my phone of the party. "Okay," Lisa said, spreading documents across the table. "Here's the situation. Scarlett technically does have some tenant rights because she's been staying there for 3 weeks. But she doesn't have a lease, she hasn't paid rent, and you have clear documentation that this was always meant to be temporary. More importantly, she's violated basically every possible rule of occupancy. Unauthorized parties, damage to property, harassment of the landlord, which is you. We can get her out, but we need to be smart about it." "What about the police?" I asked. "Can't I report her for essentially squatting?" "We could, but that gets messy and could take weeks. What I'm proposing is a multi-pronged approach. First, we document everything. Every single instance of damage, every bill, every text message. We build an overwhelming case. Second, we file for an emergency eviction based on property destruction and lease violations. Third, and this is important, we go after her financially." "What do you mean?" I leaned forward, interested. Lisa smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. "Scarlett has been living in a property worth approximately $700,000 rent-free for nearly a month. If we calculate fair market rent for a 3-bedroom apartment in that neighborhood, we're looking at around $4,000 a month. She owes you that. Plus, there's utilities, which you said have tripled. She owes you for that. And there's property damage. Based on what you've described in these photos, we're looking at minimum $20,000 in damages, possibly more." "She doesn't have that kind of money," I said. "No, but she will have to pay it eventually. We file a civil suit for damages and unpaid rent. We get a judgment against her. It goes on her credit report. It follows her around. Suddenly, she can't rent an apartment anywhere decent because she has a huge